Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did being on that show. And I have to tell you that nothing I've ever done in my whole scientific career has ever gained for me the credibility with my students. And that may be a sad commentary about the state of higher education today, but I assure you nonetheless it is absolutely true. And I wanted to sort of underline, I said I was going to talk about theology, but I figured I can make some theological points by showing you the clip of the show. I want to end on exactly this point, because I think a lot of the things that you heard Anna say about the duties that are incumbent upon the scientific community with respect to resolving this conflict are absolutely true. And one of the guys who put it the best, as far as I'm concerned, is Charles Krauthammer. And Charles Krauthammer is probably one of the most conservative columnists for the Washington Post. He and George Will both wrote columns about the Dover trial when the trial had just ended. And you can see this column, which was published at the end of 2005. It's called Phony Theory, False Conflict. And the way that Krauthammer put it is this: how ridiculous it is, he wrote, to make evolution the enemy of God. What could be more elegant, more simple, more brilliant, more economical, more creative, indeed more divine, than a planet with millions of life forms, distinct yet interactive, all ultimately derived from accumulated variations in a single double-stranded molecule, pliable and fecund enough to give us mollusks and mice, Newton and Einstein, even if it also gave us the Kansas Board of Education. And I think that's a very good way to put it. Finally, I'm often asked by people, how would you describe evolution? An awful lot of people find evolution to be a depressing and a demeaning idea. It tells us that we're just animals. It reduces our view of the wonderfulness of life and nature. Well, I don't think that at all. And I struggled for words to sort of put that feeling out there, to say that I think evolution and understanding the evolutionary process enhances our understanding of what life is like. But I haven't been able to string any words of my own together that are better than what another scientist wrote about this in the 19th century. And the way that this guy put it, at the end of a famous book, which you've all heard of, is that he didn't find evolution to be depressing, demeaning, demoralizing at all. He said quite the contrary. He said, I think there is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, and that while this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. That's the concluding sentence of The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. And you know what? I think those are words to live by. Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to frame a question to both Anna and Ken, and then I'll ask both of you to come up here and kind of stand on either side of the mic and straight back and forth as you answer, and then hopefully as other people choose to get involved. My first question is for Anna, and it relates to the fact that the intelligent design question, the whole problem of design, which is a mixture of dealing with good design and bad design in nature and how we account for that, this arises out of the paradox of having a God with attributes that don't always point in exactly the same direction. And so we have the belief that God is good, we have the belief that God is powerful, and we try to figure out how those can both be true when we see that bad things happen. And this is the theodicy problem of evil. Now, it seems to me that this problem of intelligent design is of the same logical form, that we have good design in the world and we have bad design in the world, and we can marvel at one and despair at the other. And as we try to understand this as Christians, we say, well, we believe in a God that is intelligent, and we believe in a God that is powerful, but there's this bad design in nature, so how can we have an intelligent God who's powerful and not have successful things in the world? How do we account for that? Now, some of the solutions that we've been exploring in this conference include saying that, well, God's not really powerful, he's just kind of powerful. God's not really intelligent, he's just somewhat intelligent. But these are not ultimately very satisfactory explanations. dimensions. And it just seems to me that if we acknowledge that the problem of design is like the problem of evil, this is useful in the sense that we've reduced two problems down to one. Now, this could be a good thing when students in physics discover that rotational dynamics, which is kind of complicated, can really be reduced to linear dynamics, which is kind of simple by just changing angles to distances and so on. This is a great breakthrough because a whole lot of conceptual ideas that work in one context, you can move them to the other context, and the world is much simpler. Now, if it were the case that the thousands of years of reflecting on the problem of evil had given us a set of useful insights, we could say, yippee, let's move those insights over to the problem of design, and we'll solve that in the same way that we solved the problem of evil. But of course, we haven't solved the problem of evil at all. And in a sense, and the question that I have is sort of whether or not we don't have to just kind of give up on evil and say, look, it's just a mystery that's a part of being a believer. And we will accept that mystery as a part of being a believer because there are many reasons why we believe. And some of these are encouraging logically to us, others are not, but we're not going to solve it. I want to read from one of my favorite authors, Martin Gardner, who has a marvelous collection of essays called The Whys, W-H-Y-S, of the Philosophical Scrivener. It's a book we use in our freshman honors seminar here at ENC. But in talking about this kind of problem, Gardner, who is himself a believer in God, although not a Christian, says the following. When the atheist charges that the theist is wearing a blindfold that prevents seeing the obvious, the only honest response is that, in a way, this is true. Unamuno's one-act play, Lavenda, is about a blind woman, Maria, whose sight is restored by an operation. She cannot find her way home to the house where her father is dying until she covers her eyes with a handkerchief and uses a cane. When her rational sister Marta tears off the blindfold, Maria watches in agony her father's death. God is not visible to the eyes of reason and science. For many people, perhaps most, only by closing their eyes can they find their way home, can they avoid seeing the death of God and thereby see God with the blind eyes of faith. Those who are able to see with their hearts, even when their eyes are open, and I think that would describe theologians, must experience in agony the eternal conflict between faith and reason. So I'd be interested when you come up if you could respond to that comment. And Ken, I want to ask you a question picking up on something you said at the very end that I think is, you correctly said, I think as most observers of the controversy have noted, that this great excitement over evolution doesn't derive from scientific facts. It derives from concerns like those of Ken Ham, that there's something terrible happens when we allow that this mindless materialistic theory connects us to the animals and so on. And we want to avoid that. And I suspect, and I'm sure you would agree, that if the biologists suddenly announced that, hey, we've made a great breakthrough, it turns out that every single species that has ever lived has a common ancestry and they've all evolved, but we just discovered human beings did not, then Answers in Genesis would shut down tomorrow and there'd be no more controversy because we don't want to be connected to the animals.